In the North Pole area, there's a group of mining research teams that find a large ice block. Inside that large ice block, there is something very interesting, which they say has been trapped inside the ice for years. With great difficulty, the ice block is removed from the underground ice cave and moved to an outdoor area, where a helicopter is already ready to take it. Sometime later, after the helicopter carries the ice block, the block arrives at a facility location, where the scientists are already waiting to begin finding out about the contents of the ice block. There is a doctor there named Shepard, and together with his scientist friends, they walk down the corridor towards the ice block storage place. Shepard has been asked to identify this thing because initially, they're not sure what they have found. Looking at the size of the block, they suspect that inside it might be a mammoth, or at least a young mammoth like the one in Russia. Everyone watches in amazement when the laser starts cutting the ice, where initially they still cannot see the contents. But as they continue cutting deeper, they can see a hand inside it. And when they cut even deeper, finally they could see a human face. So Shepard moves closer to give a wild guess about what they're seeing, that the human is 40,000 years old, who has the name Neanderthal, alias Ancient Human or Iceman. So they cut up the ice and bring it once again to a place where the ice can melt thoroughly. The scientists intensively monitor the Iceman as the ice melts, monitoring blood pressure, cell regeneration, and other processes. They remove the cloak from the Iceman, then his necklaces and amulets from his body. When they collect cell samples and take a little blood, the Iceman starts to melt, and finally, his temperature begins to return to normal again. They immediately get a pulse, and even more surprisingly, they detect brain activity from the Iceman. Everyone starts working as they try to revive the Iceman using a defibrillator, and finally, he becomes conscious too. When Shepard and others talk about their next steps, there's another scientist who thinks that patients with cancer can be frozen until better medical drugs are created, while another scientist even suggests the possibility of immortality. But Shepard rejects those assumptions and says that rather than dissecting the Iceman like an animal, they should take the time to learn more about his humanity. In the end, Shepard's proposal is approved, so this human ancestor is now placed in a large artificial room with a natural environment for him to live in. There he is intended to see and feel as much as possible like what he experienced 40,000 years ago. After the Iceman wakes up, he finds some berries, only to crush them as his entertainment and not to eat them, before he goes to the waterfall to bathe. He then makes various weapons to catch an animal and makes fire from 2 stones until he feels tired, and finally, he falls asleep. The next day, something unwanted happens. When the Iceman reaches a small water puddle, he finds a water faucet with a long hose, and it makes him wonder. Initially, he tries to devour the water faucet, but after knowing that it cannot be eaten, he puts it away for storage. The Iceman then focuses on the water hose and starts pulling out the hose from the ground by following it until he finds a door, which he then destroys. On the other side, the people who are there become panicked, so they send a security guard with a tranquilizer gun as the Iceman screams and shouts, and finally, he falls to the ground after the arrow hits him. As a result, the Iceman is brought to the operating room to be handled, while Shepard cannot do anything. After relaxing at a bar, Shepard follows his doctor friend, Diane, with the intention of showing an anthropology video recording. In those videos, there's some people showing strange physical characteristics like not burning when they enter fire or not bleeding from certain body parts.
How does he do that?
Shepard suspects the reason the Iceman survived freezing is that he's like the people in those recordings with bodies that are prepared to experience certain specific events. Besides that, Shepard asks for additional time with the Iceman. Shepard enters the special room to greet the Iceman, while his co-workers observe from the window above. As can be expected, the Iceman greets Shepard unfriendly, so the security guards stand by in case something unwanted happens. The Iceman now swings his hands in panic as the doctor gets closer, and when he's close enough, the Iceman pins him to the ground and is about to use a large stone to smash his head. However, as he stares into Shepard's eyes, suddenly the Iceman changes his mind, and finally Shepard is saved. When introducing themselves, the Iceman introduces himself with the name True, but because that name is unusual to hear for Shepard, he calls the Iceman Charlie. Shepard and others then relax again at the bar, where Shepard suggests inviting a linguist so they can understand Charlie's way of communicating better. Therefore, the next day, a female linguist comes by helicopter and immediately works after she arrives at the research place. She initially watches Shepard's video with Charlie, who is introducing themselves. However, after that, the linguist wants to hear Charlie's voice more. So Shepard meets Charlie again, then they start playing around and start recognizing objects around them. Charlie even invites Shepard to dinner and gives him food with a great taste before they make a campfire, and finally they sing songs. After that, Charlie has been given sleeping pills to undergo tests to find out if there is something in his blood that can help him survive. Shepard, who has this idea, but after being examined, it turns out that nothing strange is found in his blood. Shepard then meets Diane that night to persuade her to accompany him and Charlie to the special room. Shepard thinks that if there's a woman inside the room, Charlie might be able to show his other clues. Initially, Diane refuses firmly, but the next day, when Shepard monitors Charlie, Diane changes her mind and enters the room. As Diane and Shepard approach, Charlie is busy making a sketch outline of an ancient bird on the ground, and when they get closer, Charlie retreats behind the bushes to observe both of them, until finally he becomes interested in meeting another new human. As he realizes that in front of him is a woman, Charlie starts touching, then sniffing, until he wants to check that part, and finally, Shepard immediately stops Charlie's action. He then enters the cave to take the water faucet he got before, because he wants to exchange it with Diane, and it seems Charlie misses the touch of a woman. Then, he draws a woman and 2 children on the ground, showing that he also misses his family. Suddenly, there is a helicopter hovering above them, and they can see it through the room's roof window. As a result, Charlie becomes wild, and the scientists become confused, so Shepard and Diane have to leave Charlie alone. Shepard then gets the voice data of Charlie's screams when he becomes wild, and decides to visit the Eskimo tribe's residents, who welcome him with one of their spiritual songs. He then asks about what Charlie screamed towards the helicopter, and when he learns that the word Charlie screamed is similar to the word designation from the Eskimo tribe, Shepard becomes shocked. He rushes back to the facility to tell Diane about it, where Shepard can connect and find the reason why Charlie is obsessed with the bird he draws. Shepard suspects that hunger might have wiped out people like Charlie, and that is why Charlie does what is known as dream walk, or like praying to the gods, hoping they can be calm, which in this case is symbolized by the helicopter or giant bird according to what Charlie sees. Most likely, that dream walk is the reason why Charlie initially became frozen. Now, after seeing that helicopter, Charlie develops his obsession with the helicopter, which he believes is that bird, and is driven to spend hours praying to it, while Shepard and others cannot do anything to make him forget that helicopter. When everyone leaves the monitoring center, Charlie sees the way Shepard leaves the special room, and finally Charlie can imitate his action, opening the door that could be opened to leave the special room. Now, as he moves around the place with his spear, he looks a bit lost, where he meets some animals, until he destroys a mirror when he is annoyed seeing himself, and finally, he gets injured when trying to take the mirror shards. Next, after meeting the elevator, he enters one of the laboratory rooms, where he drops a beaker full of acid, which almost costs him his life. When one of the scientists comes to do something and turns off the lights, Charlie becomes startled when being in darkness, and sees a roof window, but he realizes that he cannot climb it and makes some laboratory equipment fall. This is known by the scientist, so he turns on the lights again to see what is happening, and finally he gets stabbed by Charlie, but the scientist is still alive because the stab is not too severe. While running, Charlie finally manages to get out of the research place in the middle of this cold and snowy weather, until he sees his beloved helicopter. So he tries to approach that helicopter, but when the pilot moves his helicopter to land, suddenly Charlie's head is hit by the leg of the helicopter, and finally he faints. After securing Charlie, the staff discuss the continuation of his experiment, then discuss Charlie's stabbing incident, until wondering what if he is brought to a modern society environment, until the staff debate. However, in the end, after a decision is made, this discussion is ended by a bespectacled leader, and finally, he and the others leave, except Shepard and Diane. Shepard keeps trying to persuade Diane about his idea that Charlie is dream walking when he froze, even asking for help from a security guard in the monitoring room. Shepard asks the security guard to accidentally let the door open, so Charlie can escape by himself, because Shepard wants to take him to escape by preparing some warm equipment. Now, they go out to do a dream walk together in the cold area, until the facility alarm sounds when they know that Charlie is no longer in his room. Therefore, everyone departs with snow motorcycles and helicopters to catch Shepard and Charlie. Both of them keep walking through the snow until Charlie gets ahead of Shepard faster, passing through glaciers and ice layers until they have to separate when an ice surface breaks with a large size. Shepard shouts to Charlie, but his action is useless because Charlie is so focused on this dream walk activity. Charlie immediately sees the helicopter, so he raises both his palms to the sky and starts saying the words he usually says. And when the helicopter gets closer towards Charlie, he holds his leg to float together until that helicopter keeps flying higher and higher, so Charlie feels joyful like being in heaven. The pilot extends his hand to Charlie to help him get into the helicopter, but Charlie releases his grip, and finally he falls freely, while Shepard, who is on the ground, can only watch him from afar with horror. Charlie is suspected of dying, but Shepard's horror immediately disappears because he sees Charlie, who can finally complete his dream walk that he started 40,000 years ago. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.